Nice.
So we got a beer that at least one of us doesn't know what type of beer this is.
Well, it says an IPA. I know what an IPA is.
Make that 1.5.
And it's a cold IPA, which
yes.
I usually drink all of my IPAs cold.
Can I do a short story while we while you get prepped, while you get your mind girded? So in elementary school.
Wait, whoa. How short
we
is
got a beer
this?
story going back to elementary school?
Just a second.
Welcome to another episode of the American Beer Review Podcast.
Good times with good friends requires good beer. Lucky for us, we know how to pick all three.
We're a group of friends who grew up in the Pacific Northwest, giving us a jump start on our craft beer journey.
Join us today while Brian,
Alec,
and Chad
review some beer, talk about beer topics, and whatever else comes up. We invite you to pour yourself a drink and hang out with us.
So back in elementary school, I was a fairly intelligent child on the, taking tests and quizzes. I was always getting the A's and getting accolades. But something I didn't realize until I was much older, I was pretty fucking dumb. Because at the beginning of each day, the teacher told you there was a magnet with your name on her filing cabinet. Sorry, Miss Mahowich. You'd come in every day and go, do you have hot lunch or do you have cold lunch?
I didn't know
now,
where this was going.
part of this was on the education systems. They didn't explain that hot lunch meant you were buying lunch at the school.
Right.
And cold lunch meant you were bringing it from home.
Gotcha.
And of course, my smart dumbass would go into the line, get my lunch from the school, my finger quotes hot lunch. But by the time I got back to the classroom to eat, it was cold. So my math and physics logic ass went, oh, I get cold lunch because my lunch is always cold. So my ass for 5 years in elementary school always put my magnet on cold lunch.
Huh.
So there was some poor bastard at the end of the line every single day who did not get a meal because they did not account for that because
you were...
Yeah, because of things, because I was a dipshit.
Right,
and I had this epiphany in my mid-20s. It was a midlife crisis. So please tell me that when I see cold IPA, I am not thinking the same thing.
I got a not as long but kind of funny story. The cold IPA is not as dissimilar, that it is confusing, that it is not straightforward. So the first time I remembered seeing cold IPA was, I think, last winter. And I thought it meant I was going to get like a winter IPA.
Okay. Something
maybe a little more piney, maybe slightly darker, like not a CDA. That's what I thought. You can see from those of us that poured it into a glass, it is not that.
Super straw.
Yes.
Very clear.
Yes.
Very bright.
So it is not that.
If you take much longer telling me what it is, this will be a warm IPA.
Yeah. Cold IPA has to do with how it is fermented. That's a base like version of it.
Which then makes a lot more sense why it's got a lot clearer color.
Yeah. Sam Adams did a beer a while ago called, I think, like a 76 ale or something like that. And it was supposedly like a regular ale that was being fermented with lager yeast. What you were drinking is an IPA that's basically been lagered.
Yeah.
Or used with lager yeast. Hence the cold IPA, because it is cold fermented instead of being... So it's a beer that came around as a novelty, but was then kind of shunned as the 76 ale, but then somebody found a way to rebrand it and make it a new novelty beer that has become a bit of a hit. No, it's not a hazy, like, oh my God, we got to have the hazies, but it's come around. So, Alec, as first understanding cold IPAs, you've had some drinks. What do you think? Oh, we should say this is the
Yeah, the beer that we're
Yeah, the
reviewing,
actual
yes.
cold
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
what are we reviewing here?
So this is Stay Frosty IPA, cold India Pale Ale from Ruben's Brews out of Seattle.
Yeah, no, the cold fermenting makes sense to like a lager, where it makes a lot more sense in the color.
And are you getting that little lager pilsner bite at the end? That kind of skunky.
Yeah, so the color definitely makes more sense on the process, and
It's just
it
a
is.
little kiss.
It's almost like a cleaner IPA.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like the hazies and
It's not. There's not like the dank, like the
Mhm.
dank, and the hazies don't have it, but like some IPAs that have that kind of like real thick
right consistency,
hop
whatever.
or like that doing it. Yeah, and it's not hazy. It's not got the super juicy. It's like a crisp IPA
Right.
that like you talked about. Like it's that lager bite, that lager kind of like
You get that
pop.
little lager finish.
You could sell me, and it's
God.
basically adjacent to a craft lager,
Yeah.
right? If you told me this was a craft lager, I'd go, "Yep, this is a piney craft
I
lager."
would totally believe it because I've tried to make hoppy lagers in the past.
Yeah.
And it just never really made sense. Because going through that lagering phase, you'd lose so much.
Yep.
But using this lager yeast with the IPA base,
Mhm.
this is nice.
It's like a flip too. So if you want a hoppy light beer, an Italian Pilsner is gonna be your way to go.
Okay.
That those have tended to be like if you're getting people lately have done a fresh hop Pilsner, which kind of tends to be a little bit more of like a Italian Pilsner. So you're getting a super light body, but really piney, like wet hop
Flavor,
kind of
Yeah.
whatever,
but the body and all that stuff's different. And this one, actually, Ruben's is one of the standards of craft beer in the Pacific Northwest. Does phenomenal beers,
Mhm.
well known, constantly like has key all around beers that are constantly showing up in your shelves, and then also does these like seasonals that really pop up and are really well done.
Well, and they're-
But they do a really good job of stating this. So it's a little boozy, 6.9%.
Yeah.
50 IBUs, so mid-level
right.
on the IBUs.
But
But IBUs to me doesn't always tell you the piney or bitterness of it,
No.
even though that's what it is. Because you look at like
it's like a clinical measurement.
a hazy or a double IPA are gonna list out as can be super
IBU
high in the
heavy.
IBUs, but they're not always gonna give you that like bitter
Because-
beer taste.
Because the malt offsets.
Yes,
Yeah, a lot of
but
The
this
flavor.
one,
malt and that cold lagering.
well,
the,
that's
the
what.
yeast used knocks down a lot of that hoppiness.
So they actually explain on here under the ABV, under the IBUs, it says Stay Frosty is a modern West Coast IPA fermented at cool temperatures that is supremely crisp and hop forward. So they're not outright saying, "Hey, we used a lager yeast for this," but if you're fermenting at cool temperatures,
You have to. Those,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like those that are in. I mean, there's
some crossover yeast.
They're putting the
but-
science in there without making you have to be science minded of
Right.
it and understand. And it's a layman's way of saying, hey, here's why we're calling it a cold IPA. We made this West Coast IPA. We did this thing that's a little different. Here's why.
It's kind of funny, not to go too far off. We're not going to diverge great because this might be a topic for later. How outside of craft lager is the kind of the bread and butter winner, but now for craft IPA is the bread and butter. We're going to diverge from the IPA. So you have the hazy IPAs
Mhm.
now. You have the cold IPAs now. Who knows 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years from now, how many new
Slight variations.
classes are branched out of the IPA?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is the IPA...
You're
No,
about to
this is a
say-
topic for later. Is the IPA the lager of craft beer?
Yeah. I think looking back to this beer, the one thing I would say is what people have done because of it being a cold IPA is I feel like they are more branded and popping up in the winter.
Which it doesn't taste like a winter beer to me.
Thank you. And that is my point.
Because this is definitely branded as a...
There is like icicle looking things on the
Right.
can, stay frosty, all of that, because it's a cold, quote unquote cold IPA, which is why when I first had one,
You were expecting
I was
spice.
expecting
Big,
winter,
bolder,
yes,
punchy flavors.
yes, spiced and dark and whatever. And I would drink this in the summer.
Is this a year-round beer or is it a seasonal?
Uh,
I don't know.
It actually on the can, Ruben's Brews seasonal.
Which is weird. I
And
mean,
that's my point. Is like
I would
Is
drink
it
this
s-
season. I would drink this
I'd
if
rever-
if it's 60 degrees or higher. I would drink this.
that's what I'm saying. I would reverse the seasons.
yeah.
It should be a seasonal IPA.
I would
that
not. I would not drink. I would drink this over a lager.
in the summer.
Yeah,
that
it's
pi-
boozier.
But part of that pine feels way more refreshing than the bready, lagery finish
mhm.
of a traditional finger quotes
Yeah,
summer beer.
yeah. I would be interested to see long term what happens with it because again, I only understand the marketing as the tag says cold, so we produce it in the winter. But other than that, I don't understand it.
Right.
And that's why I think it was Sam 76 was it was a year round. It was that idea of hey, we made an ale, but we fermented it with lager yeast. And that was this it was this oh my god, they did this thing
Right.
where they made these two different types of beer but put them like
Put
it
them
just
together, yeah.
yeah. And so I would love like man, honestly, listen, hey Rubens, here's a secret. Same exact recipe. Don't do anything different. Just put a different label and name on it over the summer.
Like a cool down IPA. You know what I mean? Tying into the
Yeah.
summer.
In
Like
the winter, stay frosty, same logo. It's
Make it-
beautiful, looks good.
Make it 4.5, 5.
Oh, yeah,
Make it a
what is-
slightly more crushable.
6.9.
Yeah.
Give me a low 6. It seems like not a lot, but give me a high 5 or a low 6. And you have a great summer beer.
It should be a chill IPA, not a cold IPA.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Put some sunglasses instead of some snowflakes, and you've got it down.
All right.
Anything else with this beer?
It's good. I like it. Oh,
Overall,
where's it fitting? Where's it fitting in your fridge?
Okay, this is going to be the first one. If they hadn't said seasonal, this would be it.
Like
This
an
would
all
be year
year.
round. This is a great. If you're looking for, I don't want. There's a time and a place for a macro lager, that macro lager taste or a lager taste
Mhm.
in your fridge.
This is the craft version.
This is the craft version of it, but I need it not at 7%.
Yeah. A less boozy version of this,
5%, same flavor profile,
5.5.
in year round, done.
Yeah. I could see stocking this consistently.
I'm putting this in my fridge and then I'm bringing this to people's houses
As
to
you're
make
like,
sure they put it in their fridge. This style.
Yeah.
But also this Ruben's offering is fantastic. I'm going to sound like the last time I talked about the first time I had a hazy. The first hazy I said, this is the greatest thing in the world. So every haze I'm ever going to talk about, every cold IPA I'm going to talk about is great
hmm
because I'm
This
one
is-
of those hopheads.
You start with a Rubens.
But good beer is good beer. And this is good beer.
If you're going to start with a version of a new beer, Rubens is a great brewery to have it from.
Do not disagree. Their Gosa was what got me into those in the first
True.
place.
Yes.
You guys can keep this one in your fridge.
Okay.
It's a good beer.
Fair enough.
I think if I'm drinking a lager, I want something much lighter.
You don't
If
want
I'm-
that hops.
And if I'm drinking an IPA, I want something with a little bit more.
You like more distinction.
Yes.
And that's the key, though. That's the thing.
I don't mind having
This
the
is a
hops
blend.
24/7.
It's a good beer. But
Yeah.
I'm going one way or the other.
You like your lanes.
I prefer to color between the lines.
Yeah, this one's more of a blending. I get it.
Mhm.
Cool.
But but it's a fantastic blend, and I'm
Very
sure
good.
Yeah.
as we move forward, we're going to try others in the cold IPA
Yeah.
lane.
I just don't see it fitting a normal rotation for me.
But good enough that like
I'm not going to badmouth it, and if you gave me another can of this, I'm going to drink it. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a bad beer.
yeah.
But as far as what fridge I'm putting it in, I don't find it in a normal rotation in either of my
At
fridges.
less boozy, I would drink it more often. At basically 7%.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
it's
where I
it's
struggle
a
with it.
seasonal in the fridge at its current weight.
Cool. Thanks, Ruben.
Nice.
Yeah, our glasses are empty. We'll see you around for the next review.
And like I said, I told Brian, I found a site that unarchived all my Brew Toad recipes. So I have
nice.
my 16 original Valhalla Brewing beers.
Nice.
And of course, I had to take my Lookie's Deception IPA because it was an IPA from 6 years ago. Now it's a fucking hazy IPA.